"Sir, the gardener has hid something in his garden," the orphan girl told the millionaire without knowing that he was her father. Before we dive into this incredible story, drop a comment below and tell us where you're watching from. You're about to witness a tale of love, redemption, and second chances that will touch your heart. Enjoy the story. The autumn rain had just stopped when Marcus Wellington stepped out of his flagship restaurant, Wellington's, adjusting his expensive charcoal suit. At 35, he was worth millions, but tonight felt different, empty somehow. The elite establishment behind him buzzed with wealthy patrons, crystal glasses clinking, but Marcus felt disconnected from it all. That's when he saw her. A small figure huddled against the brick wall, barely visible in the evening shadows. A little girl, no more than 7, sat beside a bucket of wilted flowers, her tiny hands blue from the cold. Her dark hair was neatly braided despite her worn clothes, and oversized glasses slipped down her small nose. Marcus paused, watching as she tried to straighten a broken stem. Something about her determination struck him deeply. "Excuse me, sir?" The girl's voice was soft, hopeful. "Would you like to buy a flower? They're only $2. Marcus looked down at the sad bouquet, flowers that had seen better days, probably rescued from a dumpster behind a florist's shop. But her eyes held such hope, such innocence. "What's your name, sweetheart?" Marcus asked, crouching down to her level. "Emma Rodriguez, sir." She pushed her glasses up nervously. Just then, the rich aroma of garlic and herbs wafted from his restaurant's kitchen. Emma's stomach growled loudly in the quiet evening air. Her cheeks flushed red with embarrassment, and tears began forming in her brown eyes. "I'm sorry, sir," she whispered, her voice cracking. "My tummy made a noise because the food smells so good." She looked toward the restaurant's warm, golden windows. "But I know I can't go in there. They don't let people like me inside." Marcus felt his heart clench. "People like you?" Emma's tears spilled over. "Poor people, sir. I heard the fancy man at the door tell another kid that yesterday. He said only rich people can eat here." She wiped her nose with her sleeve. "I'm poor, so they won't let me in." The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. This innocent child, sitting in the cold, selling wilted flowers just to survive, believed she wasn't worthy of warmth and food simply because she was poor. Marcus stood up, his jaw set with determination. "Emma Rodriguez," he said firmly, "I own this restaurant. And I'm inviting you inside right now. You can eat here whenever you want. Always." Emma's eyes widened in disbelief. "Really, sir? Even though I'm poor? Especially because you're brave, kind, and deserving." Marcus extended his hand. "Come on. Let's get you fed." As Emma's small, cold hand slipped into his, Marcus had no idea that this simple act of kindness would change his life forever. Tomorrow would bring a shock that would turn his world completely upside down. Marcus led Emma through the polished glass doors of Wellington's, ignoring the surprised stares from his impeccably dressed staff. The little girl's eyes widened as she took in the crystal chandeliers, white tablecloths, and gleaming silverware. "Mr. Wellington?" Cassandra Mitchell, his restaurant manager, approached with a confused expression. "Is everything all right?" "Everything's perfect, Cassandra." Marcus guided Emma to his private corner table, reserved for VIP guests and business meetings. "This is Emma Rodriguez, and she's our special guest tonight." Emma sat on the edge of the velvet chair, afraid to touch anything. Marcus noticed her nervousness and smiled warmly. "Emma, what's your favorite food?" I don't know, sir," she whispered. "Mama and I usually just eat rice and beans. Sometimes bread if we're lucky." Marcus's heart ached. He signaled to the head chef, Thomas, who hurried over. "Prepare our finest children's meal," Marcus instructed. "Chicken tenders, mashed potatoes, vegetables, and chocolate cake for dessert. Make it special." While they waited, Emma told Marcus about her life in halting sentences. She lived far away with her mama, who worked cleaning offices at night. They sold flowers during the day to buy food. She'd never been inside a restaurant before. When the food arrived, Emma stared at the beautifully plated meal in wonder. "This is for me?" she asked in disbelief. "All for you," Marcus confirmed. Emma ate slowly, savoring every bite. Between mouthfuls, she chatted about her favorite subject in school, reading, and how she dreamed of having her own books someday. "You're very smart, Emma," Marcus observed, genuinely impressed by her vocabulary and manners despite her circumstances. After dinner, Marcus walked Emma to the door and handed her a crisp $50 bill. "For you and your mama." Emma's eyes filled with tears. "Mr. Marcus, you're the nicest person I've ever met. Mama says angels don't have wings sometimes, they just have kind hearts." Marcus felt an unfamiliar warmth spread through his chest. "Emma, I want you to remember something important. You can come here anytime you're hungry. Day or night. Just ask for me." "Really?" Emma clutched the money to her chest. "I promise. This is your place too now." As Emma prepared to leave, she turned back with a shy smile. "Mr. Marcus? Tomorrow I want to bring someone special to meet you. Is that okay?" "Of course. Who would you like to bring?" "My mama. I want her to meet the angel who took care of me tonight." Marcus watched Emma disappear into the evening darkness, her small figure illuminated briefly by streetlights. He had no idea that tomorrow's meeting would shatter everything he thought he knew about his life. Inside his empty penthouse later that night, Marcus couldn't stop thinking about Emma's words. "They don't let people like me inside." When had his dream restaurant become a place that excluded the most deserving? Tomorrow couldn't come fast enough. That night, Marcus sat alone in his penthouse apartment, 30 floors above the city lights. The place was a testament to his success: marble floors, floor-to-ceiling windows, designer furniture worth more than most people's cars. Yet tonight, it felt like a beautiful prison. He couldn't shake Emma's image from his mind. Her tiny hands holding wilted flowers, her embarrassed tears when her stomach growled, her innocent belief that she wasn't worthy of warmth and food. It stirred something deep within him, something he'd buried under years of business deals and corporate climbing. Marcus walked to his home office, where a framed photo sat on his mahogany desk. His mother, Isabella Wellington, smiled back at him, a woman who had cleaned houses and worked double shifts at a diner just to keep food on their table. She'd died 5 years ago, never living to see his massive success. "What would you think of me now, Mama?" he whispered to the photograph. Isabella had raised him alone after his father abandoned them when Marcus was 8. She'd worked her fingers raw so he could have school supplies and decent clothes. He remembered her coming home exhausted, her hands cracked from cleaning chemicals, but she'd still help him with homework and tell him stories about princes who rescued people in need. "You're gonna be someone special, Marcus," she used to say. "But don't forget where you come from. Success means nothing if you can't lift others up with you." Somewhere along the way, he'd forgotten that lesson. He'd become so focused on building his empire that he'd stopped seeing the people around him. His restaurants served the wealthy elite while children like Emma sat outside, hungry and unwelcome. Marcus poured himself a glass of expensive whiskey but didn't drink it. Instead, he stared out at the city, thinking about all the Emmas out there, invisible children struggling while he counted profits. His phone buzzed with text messages from colleagues about tomorrow's board meeting, from women wanting dinner dates, from investors discussing new ventures. But none of it mattered anymore. The only person he wanted to see tomorrow was a 7-year-old girl with broken glasses and a heart full of hope. He made a mental note to call his lawyer in the morning. He wanted to establish a fund for families like Emma's, something his mother would have been proud of. Something that would make his success meaningful beyond bank accounts and property portfolios. As he finally headed to bed, Marcus felt a strange anticipation for tomorrow that had nothing to do with business. He wanted to meet Emma's mother, this woman who had raised such a remarkable little girl despite impossible circumstances. He had no idea that tomorrow would bring not just a meeting, but a collision with his own past that would change everything he thought he knew about destiny, love, and second chances. The lonely millionaire fell asleep thinking about angels without wings and little girls who deserved the world. In Blake's study, Harper sat quietly in an oversized leather chair, carefully eating the sandwich Mrs. Chen, the housekeeper, had prepared. Blake sat across from her, the wooden box on his mahogany desk, gathering courage to open the envelope. "Sir," Harper said softly, "sometimes scary things aren't as bad when you face them quickly." Her wisdom surprised him. With trembling fingers, Blake broke the wax seal and unfolded Sophia's letter. The paper was slightly yellowed, but her handwriting remained clear and heartbreaking. Asterisk. "My dearest Blake, I don't know if you'll ever read this, but I have to try one more time. I've called, written, even came to your office, but somehow my messages never reach you. Your mother told me you've made it clear you want nothing to do with me or our baby. Yes, Blake, our baby. I'm pregnant with your daughter. She's due in 3 months, and every day she kicks, I imagine she has your stubborn determination. I've named her Lily, after your grandmother's favorite flower. I know your mother disapproves of me, but I thought you would want to know about your child. I thought you loved me enough to at least hear my voice one more time. If you're reading this and still don't want us in your life, I'll understand. But please know that I will love this baby enough for both of us, and I'll tell her every day how much her father meant to me, even if he never wants to meet her. Forever yours, Sophia P.S. I've included photos of our daughter's first year. She has your eyes." Asterisk. Blake's hands shook violently as the letter fell to his lap. The room seemed to spin around him. He had a daughter. Sophia had tried desperately to contact him, but somehow he had never received any of her messages. "Blake?" Harper's small voice cut through his shock. "You're crying." Without fully understanding why, Blake stood and pulled Harper into his arms, holding her tight. Something about her presence felt like comfort, like coming home. She didn't resist, instead wrapping her small arms around his neck. "She tried to tell me," he whispered into Harper's hair. "I had a baby, and I never knew. Someone kept us apart." Harper pulled back to look at his face. "Maybe she's still out there. Maybe you can find her." Blake's heart shattered further as he realized the photos spanned only 1 year. Where was his daughter now? Why had Sophia stopped trying to contact him after that first year, and why had none of her messages ever reached him? The answer came to him like a cold knife: his mother. Eleanor Montgomery had controlled his communications, his social circle, his entire life until he'd finally broken free to build his own company. "Harper," he said, his voice gaining strength, "I think someone in my family has been keeping secrets. Big, terrible secrets." Blake found Thomas in the greenhouse, tending to winter orchids with the same meticulous care he'd shown for 15 years. The elderly man looked up as Blake approached, his weathered face immediately registering guilt when he saw the wooden box in Blake's hands. "Thomas," Blake said, his voice steady but stern. "We need to talk." Harper followed quietly behind, sensing the importance of this moment. Thomas set down his watering can, his hands visibly shaking. "Mr. Blake, I can explain, then explain. Now." Blake placed the box on the potting bench between them. "This has my name on it, and it was buried in my garden." "Why?" Thomas glanced nervously at Harper, then back at Blake. "The little one found it? She saw you bury it last night and brought it to me this morning. Thomas, these are photos of Sophia Martinez and what appears to be my daughter. A daughter I never knew existed." The old gardener's shoulders sagged in defeat. "I've been waiting for this day for 7 years, Mr. Blake. Dreading it, but knowing it would come. Who told you to bury this box?" Thomas hesitated, looking around the greenhouse as if searching for escape. "Your mother, sir. Mrs. Eleanor Montgomery. She gave me the box the day after Miss Sophia's funeral and told me to bury it where no one would ever find it." Blake felt the blood drain from his face. "Sophia's funeral? Sophia is dead?" "Yes, sir. Car accident when the little girl was 2 years old. Mrs. Montgomery handled all the arrangements. She said it was for the best, that you were better off not knowing." Harper moved closer to Blake, instinctively offering comfort as she watched his world crumble. "Where is my daughter now, Thomas?" "Mrs. Montgomery placed her in an orphanage, sir. Said the child would be better off with proper families than being raised by, well, she had strong opinions about Miss Sophia's background." Blake's hands clenched into fists. His mother had not only hidden Sophia's pregnancy and attempts to contact him, but she had also concealed Sophia's death and sent his daughter to an orphanage. "Which orphanage?" "Sunshine Children's Home, about 2 hours north of here." "But sir, that was 5 years ago. The child might have been adopted by now." Blake stared at the photos in the box, his daughter's first steps, her second birthday, moments he would never get back. His mother had stolen not just his chance to be with Sophia, but years of his daughter's life. "Thomas, why didn't you tell me sooner?" The old man's eyes filled with tears. Mrs. Montgomery threatened to destroy my pension and have me arrested for trespassing if I ever spoke about this. I needed my job, sir. My wife was sick, and we had no other income. Blake's anger shifted from Thomas to its rightful target. Where is my mother now? In her study, sir. She's been expecting this conversation for years. Eleanor Montgomery sat behind her mahogany desk like a queen holding court, her silver hair perfectly styled despite the early afternoon hour. At 65, she remained an imposing figure who had ruled Chicago's social elite for decades. Blake entered without knocking, Harper close behind him. Eleanor's pale blue eyes immediately noticed the wooden box in her son's hands, and her composed expression flickered for just a moment. Blake, darling, you should have called first. And who is this child? Her name is Harper, and she just saved me from a lifetime of lies. Blake placed the box on Eleanor's desk with deliberate force. We need to discuss Sophia Martinez. Eleanor's face remained perfectly neutral. I'm afraid I don't recall anyone by that name. Mother, don't. Blake's voice carried a warning she'd never heard before. Thomas already told me everything. About the buried box, about Sophia's death, about my daughter. For the first time in years, Eleanor looked genuinely surprised. Her gaze shifted to Harper, who was studying the elegant woman with curious eyes. Thomas always was too sentimental for his own good, Eleanor said coolly. Very well. Since you apparently know, let me save us both some time. Yes, that woman contacted you repeatedly. Yes, she claimed to be carrying your child. And yes, I handled the situation appropriately. Blake's face flushed with anger. Appropriately? You hid my daughter from me. I protected this family from scandal. Eleanor's voice remained ice-cold. That girl was a waitress from the wrong side of town. She saw an opportunity to trap a Montgomery heir and took it. Harper stepped forward, her small voice cutting through the tension. But the lady in the pictures looked happy, not like someone trying to trick anybody. Eleanor glanced dismissively at Harper. Children don't understand adult complexities. Blake leaned across the desk. Where is my daughter now? Sunshine Children's Home, where she's been properly cared for since that woman's unfortunate accident. Eleanor straightened some papers as if discussing the weather. Really, Blake, you should be thanking me. A child from such circumstances would have been nothing but a burden. Blake stared at his mother in horror. The woman who had raised him was capable of coldness he'd never imagined. You stole years of my life. Years of her life. I preserved your future. You built an empire, married well, until that unfortunate divorce, and maintained your reputation. None of that would have been possible with a bastard child dragging you down. Harper tugged on Blake's sleeve. Sir, maybe we should go find your daughter now. Blake nodded, his eyes never leaving his mother's face. You're right, Harper. We have more important things to do than listen to excuses. Blake, Eleanor called as he turned to leave. That child is 7 years old now. She won't even remember you. You're chasing fantasies. Blake paused at the door. Maybe. But at least I'll know I tried. Blake left his mother's study with Harper beside him, his mind racing with urgency. Every moment that passed was another moment away from his daughter. He had already lost 7 years. He wouldn't lose another minute. Mrs. Chin. He called to his housekeeper. Please prepare my car immediately. We're taking a trip. In the foyer, Blake knelt down to Harper's level. Harper, I need to go to this orphanage to find my daughter. You don't have to come with me, but would you like to? You started this journey by finding that box. Harper's green eyes brightened. I'd like that very much, sir. I want to see if your daughter is as nice as you are. During the 2-hour drive north, Blake found himself glancing frequently in the rearview mirror at Harper. She sat quietly in the back seat, occasionally pointing out interesting sights, but mostly just observing the world with those remarkably expressive eyes. Harper, Blake said, breaking a comfortable silence. You mentioned you don't have family. How long have you been on your own? About a year, I think. Time gets fuzzy when you're always moving around. She traced patterns on the car window. I remember being in a big building with lots of other kids before that, but it wasn't a very happy place. Blake's heart clenched. What kind of big building? I don't know the name. The ladies who worked there weren't very nice. They said I was trouble because I asked too many questions and wandered around at night. Harper's voice grew softer. One day I just left. No one came looking for me. Something about her description made Blake's stomach tighten. The timing, her age, the way she spoke about an institutional setting. Harper, do you remember anything else about this place? Was it far from Chicago? I walked for a really long time to get to the city. My feet hurt for weeks. She paused thoughtfully. There were lots of trees around the building, and a playground that was always broken. Blake's hands gripped the steering wheel tighter. Could it be possible? The timing would be right. If Harper had run away from an orphanage about a year ago, and she was 7 now, he studied her reflection in the mirror again. Her dark curls caught the afternoon sunlight streaming through the window, and when she smiled, something about the shape of her mouth seemed achingly familiar. Harper, this might sound strange, but do you remember your birthday? Not really. The ladies at the place said it was in spring sometime, but they weren't sure either. They said my records were incomplete. She met his eyes in the mirror. Why are you asking? Just curious, Blake said, though his heart was pounding. The photograph of Sophia holding a baby had been taken in spring 7 years ago. As they approached the outskirts of Sunshine Children's Home, Blake noticed Harper growing more restless. She pressed her face to the window, studying the landscape with increasing intensity. This place looks familiar, she whispered. Really familiar. Blake pulled into the orphanage parking lot, his mind spinning with impossible possibilities. The building matched Harper's description perfectly, surrounded by tall trees, with a broken playground visible to one side. Before he could voice his growing suspicions, Harper spoke again, her voice small and confused. Blake? I think I remember this place. I think this is where I used to live. Sunshine Children's Home stood like a faded monument to good intentions, a 3-story brick building with chipped paint and windows that had seen too many lonely faces pressed against them. Blake held Harper's hand as they approached the main entrance, feeling her small fingers trembling in his grip. I definitely remember this place, Harper whispered, her voice tinged with old fear. The front door was always heavy, and there were cracks in the sidewalk that looked like lightning. Blake squeezed her hand reassuringly as they entered the reception area. The interior smelled of disinfectant and something indefinable, sadness, perhaps. A middle-aged woman with kind eyes and graying hair approached them from behind a cluttered desk. Good afternoon. I'm Margaret Sullivan, the director here. How can I help you? Blake extended his free hand. I'm Blake Montgomery, and this is Harper. I'm looking for information about a child who should be living here, my daughter. Margaret's eyebrows rose in surprise. Your daughter? What's her name? Lily Montgomery. She would be 7 years old now. She was placed here about 5 years ago after her mother died in a car accident. Margaret's expression grew troubled. She gestured toward her office. Please come in. We need to discuss this privately. The office was small but welcoming, with children's artwork covering one wall and family photos on Margaret's desk. Harper immediately gravitated toward the artwork, studying each piece with intense concentration. Mr. Montgomery, Margaret began carefully. We did have a child named Lily Montgomery here, but I'm afraid I have troubling news. She ran away from our facility 5 days ago. Blake felt the world tilt around him. She ran away? But she's just 7 years old. I know. We've contacted the police, of course, and we have people searching, but... Margaret's voice trailed off. Lily was always a very independent child. Bright, observant, but also restless. She often talked about having a father who would come for her someday. Harper turned from the artwork, her face pale. What did she look like? Margaret seemed surprised by the question from such a young visitor. Well, she had beautiful dark brown curls and the most striking green eyes I've ever seen. Very determined expression, even as a small child. She was small for her age, but incredibly brave. Blake's heart sank as he processed this description. His daughter, a child who looked remarkably similar to the little girl standing right in front of him, was somewhere out there alone on the streets. Did she say where she might go? Blake asked desperately. She always talked about Chicago. Said her father lived in a big house there, and that she would find him somehow. Margaret pulled out a file folder. She was quite resourceful. Several times she managed to get past our security just to explore the surrounding area. Harper moved closer to Margaret's desk, studying a photo that sat among the family pictures. Is that her? Margaret picked up the frame and showed it to Blake. The photograph showed a group of children at a birthday party, but one face stood out immediately. The little girl in the center had Harper's exact features, the same curls, the same green eyes, even the same determined expression. Blake stared at the photo, then at Harper, then back at the photo. The resemblance was impossible to ignore. When was this picture taken? He asked hoarsely. About 6 months ago, right before Lily started talking more seriously about running away. Margaret followed Blake's gaze between the photo and Harper. Actually, the resemblance is quite striking, isn't it? Harper reached for the photo with shaking hands. That's me. she whispered. That's really me in that picture. Margaret carefully studied Harper's face, then looked again at the photograph. The silence in the office grew heavy as the impossible truth began to crystallize in everyone's minds simultaneously. Harper, Margaret said gently, can you tell me your full name? Harper bit her lip, concentrating hard. I used to be called something else, but I changed it when I left here. Harper felt safer on the streets. People were less likely to look for a Harper than for a. She paused, struggling with the memory. Lily. I think I used to be called Lily. Blake's legs nearly gave out beneath him. He gripped the back of a chair to steady himself. Lily Montgomery. That's your real name? I don't know about the Montgomery part, Harper said quietly. But yes, I remember being called Lily here. The other kids sometimes called me Lily of the Valley because I liked flowers so much. Margaret opened Lily's file and began comparing notes with what she was observing. Lily had a small scar on her left knee from falling off the playground equipment. Do you have that scar, Harper? Harper rolled up her torn pants leg, revealing a crescent-shaped scar exactly where Margaret indicated. And she had a birthmark on her right shoulder shaped like a tiny star. Margaret continued. Without hesitation, Harper pulled aside her shirt collar. There, barely visible but unmistakable, was the star-shaped birthmark. Blake felt tears streaming down his face. You're Lily. You're my daughter, and you've been living on the streets for a year. But how could she have found you? Margaret asked in amazement. The odds of a runaway child stumbling across her father by chance. She saw our gardener burying a box of photographs and documents about her mother. Blake explained, his voice thick with emotion. She brought it to me this morning. She led me to the truth about her own existence. Harper, Lily, looked between the adults with wide eyes. So the man in the photographs, you're really my daddy? Blake knelt down to her level, reaching out tentatively to touch her face. Yes, sweetheart. I'm your father, and I've been looking for you my whole life without even knowing it. Margaret wiped tears from her eyes. This is extraordinary. Lily always insisted her father would find her. She used to draw pictures of a big house and say she would recognize it when she saw it. The Montgomery mansion, Blake whispered. You were watching the house. That's how you saw Thomas. Lily nodded slowly, memories beginning to return more clearly. I've been sleeping behind houses in that neighborhood for weeks. Something about the area felt right, but I didn't understand why. She looked up at Blake with wonder. I was drawn to your house because it was mine all along? And when you saw Thomas burying something, your instinct was to help, Blake said, pulling her into his arms. You brought me the key to finding you. Margaret documented everything carefully, making notes about the miraculous reunion. Mr. Montgomery, I'll need to verify some details and complete paperwork, but this appears to be legitimate. Lily, Harper, whoever she chooses to be called now, can go home with her father. Lily looked up at Blake with a mix of hope and fear. Do you really want me? I'm not very clean, and I don't know how to act in big houses. Blake held her tighter. I want you more than anything in the world. We'll figure out everything else together. Margaret completed the necessary paperwork while Blake and Lily sat together on the small couch in her office. The little girl, his daughter, seemed smaller now that the truth was revealed, as if the weight of surviving alone had suddenly become visible. Lily, Blake said softly, testing her real name. Do you remember your mother at all? Lily's eyes grew distant. Sometimes I dream about a pretty lady with long dark hair who smelled like flowers. She used to sing to me. She looked up at Blake hopefully. Was that my mama? Yes. Her name was Sophia, and she loved you very much. Blake pulled out his phone and showed her one of the photos from the box. This is her, holding you when you were a baby. Lily stared at the image with wonder. She looks happy. She was happy because she had you. And she would be so proud of how brave you've been. Margaret approached with a folder of documents. Mr. Montgomery, everything appears to be in order. Lily's guardianship can be officially transferred to you immediately. She knelt down to Lily's level. Sweetheart, are you ready to go home with your father? Lily looked around the office that had once been part of her institutional life. Will I ever have to come back here? Not unless you want to visit, Blake assured her. You're coming home with me forever. As they prepared to leave, Lily suddenly grabbed Blake's hand. Daddy, can I call you Daddy? I'm scared. Scared of what, sweetheart? What if I don't know how to be your daughter? What if I'm too different now? Her green eyes filled with worry. I've been Harper for so long, living on the streets. I don't remember how to be Lily in a fancy house. Blake knelt down and cupped her face gently. Listen to me. You don't have to be anyone but yourself. Whether you want to be called Lily or Harper or something completely new, that's up to you. You don't have to change to fit into my world. I want to build a new world that fits you. Lily considered this seriously. Can I be Lily again? I think I miss being Lily. Of course you can. Whatever makes you happy. During the drive home, Lily pressed her face to the window, watching the landscape change from rural to suburban to the wealthy neighborhood she'd been watching from the outside. Daddy, she said quietly, when I was little, before Mama died, did we ever live together? Blake's heart broke a little more. No, sweetheart. I didn't even know you existed until today. Some very bad people kept us apart on purpose. The mean grandmother lady? Blake was surprised by her perceptiveness. Yes. How did you know? She came to the orphanage once, when I was really little. She looked at me like I was something dirty and told the lady in charge that no one should ever tell me where I came from. Lily's voice grew smaller. I always wondered why someone hated me so much. She doesn't hate you, Lily. She hates that she was wrong about your mother and about love. Blake reached back to squeeze her hand. But her opinion doesn't matter anymore. What matters is that we found each other. As they pulled into the Montgomery estate, Lily gasped. This is where I've been sleeping. Behind the fence. Blake's heart ached thinking of his daughter sleeping in the cold, while he lived in luxury just yards away. You'll never sleep outside again. Promise me that. Lily nodded solemnly. I promise, Daddy. The Montgomery mansion looked different to Lily when she walked through the front door as the owner's daughter instead of a homeless child peering through windows. The marble foyer with its crystal chandelier seemed overwhelming, and she instinctively moved closer to Blake. It's so big, she whispered, her voice echoing in the vast space. Mrs. Chin appeared from the kitchen, her face lighting up when she saw them return together. Mr. Blake, you found her! Mrs. Chin, I'd like you to meet my daughter Lily. Blake's voice filled with pride as he spoke the words. Mrs. Chin knelt down with tears in her eyes. Welcome home, little miss. I've been hoping to meet you for many years. Lily looked confused. You knew about me? I suspected, Mrs. Chin said gently. Your father kept a photo of a beautiful woman named Sophia in his desk drawer. Sometimes I would catch him looking at it with such sadness. Now I understand why. Blake led Lily up the grand staircase to show her the bedrooms. You can choose any room you'd like. We'll decorate it however you want. Lily explored each room carefully, but when they reached a corner bedroom with large windows overlooking the garden where she discovered the buried box, she stopped. This one, she said firmly. I can see the whole garden from here, and the rose bush is where everything started. Are you sure? It might bring back sad memories. Lily shook her head. Happy memories. This is where I found you. That evening, after Mrs. Chin had prepared Lily's favorite meal, which turned out to be simple grilled cheese sandwiches, Blake sat with his daughter in the living room. She curled up next to him on the sofa, still overwhelmed by the day's revelations. Daddy, she said softly. What happens now? Do I go to school? Do I have to learn fancy manners? We'll take everything one day at a time. First, we need to get you some clothes that fit and make sure you're healthy. Then we'll figure out school and everything else together. Lily was quiet for a moment. Will the mean grandmother lady try to send me away again? Blake's jaw tightened. She'll never have that power again. I'm your father, and I make the decisions about your life now. As if summoned by their conversation, Eleanor Montgomery appeared in the doorway. She had clearly been drinking, her usually perfect composure slightly disheveled. So, Eleanor said, her voice dripping with disdain, you actually found the little bastard and brought her home. Mother, watch your language. And yes, I brought my daughter home where she belongs. Eleanor's gaze fixed on Lily with cold calculation. She looks exactly like that woman. Same defiant eyes, same common features. Lily pressed closer to Blake, but her voice remained steady. I know who you are. You're the lady who told them at the orphanage that I should never know about my family. Eleanor's eyebrows rose in surprise. Clever little thing, aren't you? Yes, I made sure you stayed where you belong. She belonged with me, Blake said firmly, standing up and positioning himself protectively in front of Lily. She belonged nowhere near this family. That woman trapped you with a pregnancy, and this child will do the same thing, drag down everything we've built. Lily stood up and walked directly to Eleanor, showing no fear despite her small size. My mama didn't trap anybody. She loved my daddy, and she loved me. And I'm not going to drag anybody down because my daddy and I are going to take care of each other. Eleanor stared down at the fierce little girl, clearly not expecting such boldness. "Mother," Blake said quietly, "you have a choice. Accept Lily as part of this family, or find somewhere else to live. But you will never speak to my daughter with disrespect again." Eleanor stared at Blake and Lily for a long moment, her face cycling through emotions, anger, disbelief, and something that might have been fear. Never in 35 years had Blake spoken to her with such finality. "You would choose this child over your own mother?" Eleanor's voice wavered slightly. "I would choose love over control," Blake replied calmly. "Something you never taught me but Lily has shown me in just one day." Eleanor's gaze shifted to Lily, who stood her ground despite being dwarfed by the imposing older woman. "And what makes you think you can just waltz into this family and change everything, little girl?" Lily tilted her head thoughtfully. "I don't want to change everything. I just want to belong somewhere safe with my daddy." She paused, then added with surprising wisdom, "But maybe you're scared that if Daddy loves me, he won't love you anymore?" Eleanor's carefully constructed mask slipped entirely. For a moment, she looked like what she truly was, a lonely, aging woman who had controlled others because she feared being abandoned herself. "I built this family's legacy," Eleanor whispered. "Everything we have, everything Blake achieved, was built on lies and cruelty." Blake interrupted. "You stole 7 years from both of us, Mother. 7 years I could have been raising my daughter, and 7 years she could have been loved instead of abandoned." Lily stepped forward and, to everyone's surprise, reached out to touch Eleanor's hand. "Mrs. Eleanor, I know you don't like me, but I don't want to take your son away from you. Maybe there's room for both of us to love him?" Eleanor jerked her hand away as if burned, but her eyes filled with tears. "You don't understand. That woman, your mother, she was going to ruin everything." "No," Lily said firmly. "Mama was going to love Daddy, and love makes people stronger, not weaker." Blake knelt down and pulled Lily close. "That's exactly right, sweetheart. Love makes us stronger." Eleanor stood frozen for several moments, watching father and daughter together. Finally, she spoke in a voice Blake hadn't heard since his childhood, small and uncertain. "I don't know how to undo what I've done. You start by leaving us alone to build our relationship," Blake said. "And maybe someday, if you can learn to treat Lily with respect, we can discuss rebuilding ours." Eleanor nodded stiffly and left the room without another word. Later that night, Blake tucked Lily into the bed they'd hastily prepared in her chosen room. She looked tiny in the large space, but her eyes were bright with contentment. "Daddy," she said sleepily, "do you think Mama would be happy that we found each other?" Blake smoothed her dark curls, so like Sophia's. "I think she would be overjoyed. I think she's been watching over you this whole time, keeping you safe until you could find your way home to me. Will you tell me more stories about her tomorrow? Every day, if you want. We have a lot of catching up to do." As Lily drifted off to sleep, Blake sat in the chair beside her bed, watching her peaceful face. For the first time in 8 years, his heart felt completely full. His daughter was home, and tomorrow they would begin building the life they should have had all along. 3 weeks had passed since Lily came home, and the Montgomery mansion had transformed from a cold monument to wealth into something warmer, a real home. Blake had taken time off from his company to focus entirely on his daughter, something that shocked his business partners but felt absolutely right to him. "Daddy, look!" Lily called from the garden, where she was helping the new gardener, a kind woman named Rose whom Blake had hired to replace Thomas. "The roses are blooming where we found the box." Blake joined her in the garden, watching as she carefully examined each flower. She had filled out in just 3 weeks of regular meals, and her clothes now fit properly instead of hanging like rags. But more importantly, the guarded wariness in her eyes was slowly being replaced by trust and joy. "They're beautiful, sweetheart. Just like you." Lily beamed at him. "Rose says roses sometimes bloom late in the season when they have something special to celebrate." Dr. Sarah Chin, no relation to Mrs. Chin the housekeeper, had been coming to the house twice a week for Lily's psychological evaluation. Blake had wanted to ensure his daughter received proper support for the trauma she'd experienced. "Mr. Montgomery," Dr. Chin had told him after her most recent session, "Lily is remarkably resilient. The fact that she sought help by bringing you that box shows incredible emotional intelligence. She's processing her experiences in a very healthy way. But not everything was perfect. Lily still woke up sometimes in the middle of the night, confused about where she was. She hoarded food in her room despite Blake's constant reassurances that there would always be enough. And she flinched whenever someone raised their voice, even in playful excitement. These responses are completely normal, Dr. Chin had explained. It will take time for her to fully believe she's safe. The most important thing is consistency and patience. Blake was learning patience he never knew he possessed. When Lily spilled juice on his expensive carpet, he found himself more concerned about whether she thought she was in trouble than about the stain. When she asked the same questions about Sophia repeatedly, he answered each time as if it were the first. Eleanor had kept her distance, though Blake occasionally caught her watching Lily from windows or doorways. The child, with her remarkable capacity for forgiveness, had even tried to wave at her grandmother a few times, but Eleanor always disappeared before acknowledging the gesture. "Daddy," Lily said one afternoon as they read together in his study, "why doesn't Grandma Eleanor like me?" Blake chose his words carefully. "It's not that she doesn't like you, sweetheart. She's afraid of change, and she's never learned how to love the way we do. Could we teach her?" Blake looked at his daughter's earnest face. After everything Eleanor had done, stealing years from both of them, sending Lily to an orphanage, burying evidence of her existence, Lily still wanted to include her grandmother in their new family. "Maybe," Blake said. "But only if she wants to learn. Love can't be forced." That evening, as Blake was tucking Lily into bed, she made an announcement that surprised him. "Daddy, I've been thinking about my name." "Oh? What about it?" "I like being Lily again, but I also like Harper. Harper was brave and survived on the streets. I don't want to forget her completely." Blake sat on the edge of her bed. "What are you thinking? Could I be Lily Harper Montgomery? That way I keep both parts of who I am." Blake's eyes filled with tears. In 3 weeks, his 7-year-old daughter had shown more wisdom about identity and healing than many adults possessed. "Lily Harper Montgomery," he repeated. "I think that's perfect. It honors where you've been and where you're going. And it honors Mama too, right? Because she gave me the name Lily?" "Absolutely. She would love knowing that you're keeping her gift while also celebrating your own strength." As Lily drifted off to sleep, Blake reflected on how much his life had changed. 3 weeks ago, he had been a successful but emotionally empty man. Now, every day brought new discoveries about fatherhood, about love, and about the incredible resilience of children. Tomorrow, they would visit Sophia's grave together for the first time. Blake had been putting it off, not sure if Lily was ready, but she had asked specifically to go. "I want to tell Mama that we found each other," she had said. "And I want to thank her for keeping me safe until I could come home." The cemetery was peaceful in the morning light, with dew still clinging to the grass and birds singing softly in the old oak trees. Blake held Lily Harper's hand as they walked along the winding path towards Sophia's grave, carrying a bouquet of white roses from their garden. "Are you nervous, sweetheart?" Blake asked as they approached the simple granite headstone that read, "Sophia Maria Martinez, beloved mother 1995 to 2019. Lily shook her head, though Blake could feel her small hand trembling in his. "I'm excited to meet her, even if she can't talk back." Blake's heart ached at his daughter's simple faith. They had prepared for this visit carefully, with Dr. Chen helping Lily understand what it meant to visit someone who had died. When they reached the grave, Lily immediately knelt and placed her hand on the headstone. "Hi, Mama. It's me, Lily. I used to be Harper for a while, but now I'm Lily Harper Montgomery because Daddy and I found each other." Blake knelt beside her, his own emotions threatening to overwhelm him. "Sophia," he whispered, "I'm so sorry I wasn't there for you. I'm sorry I didn't get your messages. I promise I'll take care of our daughter the way you would have wanted." Lily began talking to the headstone as if Sophia were sitting right there with them. She told her about living on the streets, about finding the buried box, about how wonderful Blake was as a daddy. She promised to be good and to remember the lullabies Sophia used to sing. "Mama," Lily said finally, "Daddy says you would be proud of me for being brave. I hope that's true. I hope you're not sad that I had to take care of myself for so long." "She's not sad," came a voice behind them. Blake and Lily turned to see Eleanor approaching slowly, carrying a small bouquet of lilies. She looked older somehow, more fragile than Blake had ever seen her. "Grandma Eleanor?" Lily said in surprise. Eleanor stopped a few feet away, clearly struggling with her emotions. I wanted to apologize. To both of you. And to her." She gestured toward the headstone. Blake stood protectively, not sure what to expect from his mother. "I was wrong," Eleanor continued, her voice shaky. "About everything. About Sophia, about you, about what makes a family strong." She looked directly at Lily. "I was so afraid of losing Blake that I lost him anyway by trying to control his life." Lily stood and walked over to Eleanor. "You didn't lose him, Grandma. He still loves you. He told me so." Eleanor's composure finally cracked. Tears streamed down her face as she knelt to Lily's level. Can you ever forgive a foolish old woman who made terrible mistakes? Lily considered this seriously, then reached out and hugged Eleanor. Mama used to tell me that everyone deserves second chances if they really want to change. Eleanor held Lily carefully, as if she might break. I want to change. I want to be a real grandmother to you, if you'll let me. Blake watched this exchange with wonder. His daughter's capacity for forgiveness continued to amaze him. There's something else, Eleanor said, pulling back to look at Lily. I have photo albums from your father's childhood, and some things that belonged to your mother that I kept. I'd like to share them with you, if you're interested. Lily's eyes lit up. Pictures of Daddy as a little boy. And things that were Mama's? Yes. Including a jewelry box that played a lullaby. She said it was for you when you got older. Blake felt his throat tighten. Even in death, Sophia was still giving gifts to their daughter. They spent another hour at the cemetery, with Eleanor sharing stories about Blake's childhood and Lily telling her grandmother about her adventures on the streets. It wasn't a complete healing, that would take time, but it was a beginning. As they prepared to leave, Lily placed the white roses on Sophia's grave and kissed the headstone. I'll come back and visit, Mama. And I'll bring Daddy and Grandma Eleanor so we can all be together. Walking back to the car together, 3 generations finally united, Blake realized that finding the buried box had done more than reveal his daughter's existence. It had excavated buried feelings, buried regrets, and buried possibilities for love that he thought were lost forever. 6 months had passed since that life-changing morning when a brave little girl knocked on Blake Montgomery's door. The mansion had been transformed in ways both visible and invisible. Children's laughter echoed through halls that had been silent for decades, finger paintings hung beside priceless artwork, and the formal dining room had been converted into a homework and craft space. Lily Harper Montgomery, now 8 years old, sat in the garden where her story began, carefully planting new rose bushes with her father and grandmother. Her birthday party the previous week had been everything a little girl could dream of, complete with friends from her new school, teachers who adored her, and family who cherished her. Daddy, Lily said, patting soil around a white rosebush. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if I hadn't seen Thomas that night? Blake paused in his own planting, considering the question. Sometimes. But then I remember what Dr. Chen taught us about destiny. Maybe some things are meant to happen when they're meant to happen. Eleanor, who had spent months earning her way back into their hearts through consistent kindness and respect, looked up from her own gardening. I think your mother guided you that night, sweetheart. She made sure you found exactly what your father needed to find you. The transformation in Eleanor had been remarkable to witness. She had sold her controlling interests in several family businesses, donated millions to children's charities, and most importantly, had learned to listen more than she spoke. Her relationship with Lily had blossomed into something beautiful, a grandmother who told stories, helped with homework, and never once mentioned propriety or bloodlines. Grandma Eleanor, Lily said thoughtfully, I'm glad you learned how to love us. I'm glad you taught me how. Eleanor replied, her voice thick with emotion. Blake watched his daughter and mother working together and marveled at the healing power of unconditional love. Lily had not only found her family, she had healed it. Dr. Chen had been amazed by Lily's progress. The nightmares had stopped, the food hoarding had ended, and the wariness in her eyes had been replaced by confidence and joy. She excelled in school, made friends easily, and had even started a small support group for other children who had experienced homelessness. She's become an advocate, Dr. Chen had told Blake. She's using her experience to help others, which shows incredible emotional maturity. Thomas had been given a generous retirement package and now lived comfortably in a small house near his daughter. He visited occasionally to see how the gardens were growing, always marveling at how much brighter everything seemed with Lily's presence. As the sun began to set over their garden, the 3 generations sat together on the bench Blake had placed near the rose bushes, a memorial to Sophia and a celebration of the love that had brought them all together. Daddy, Lily said, leaning against his shoulder, I want to tell you something important. What's that, sweetheart? I'm not sad anymore about being Harper on the streets. Harper taught me to be brave and to notice when things are wrong. Without Harper, I never would have found you. Blake kissed the top of her curly head. And without you, I never would have learned what real love feels like. Eleanor reached over and took Lily's hand. And without both of you, I never would have learned that family isn't about perfection or control, it's about forgiveness and growing together. As stars began to appear in the darkening sky, Lily made one final observation that captured the magic of their journey. Sometimes the best treasures are buried right where we can find them, if we're brave enough to dig. Blake smiled, holding his daughter close as Eleanor hummed softly, the same lullaby from Sophia's jewelry box that now played every night in Lily's room. They had found each other against impossible odds, healed wounds that seemed permanent, and built a family stronger than any that had come before. I in the garden where secrets had been buried, love had bloomed instead.